Good evening. Welcome to Words for the Soul. We are back. Woohoo! All right. We're excited for part two and breaking the stigmas. I'm giving you opportunity. I'm getting ready to like, tag, and share once I see it on my phone that it has come up because it has not come up. Yours came up live already? Okay, mine just did now as well. So give opportunity to go ahead and share. Get ready to like, tag, and okay, somebody's volume needs to be gonna turn our volume down. All
That was
right.
me.
We're all good. Join us now. So we thank you. I am Overseer M. Alexander. We are on week 173, I do believe, as we are breaking the stigmas on suicide awareness. Oh my goodness, we have our continued fabulous anointed guests. Man, we have been just rocking and rolling. And before we introduce our guests, I wanted to do a shout out. Bishop, we had such a great time this morning in our Sunday school. We had NAMI representative, Elder Genesis Williamson. So we wanted to just do a shout out. If you have not heard about NAMI Bridges to Care, we're going to put that information in the chat. And so if you want to become a wellness champion, we want to share this with the information. And it's free, it's online. So we want to just share that information with you. And we're going to get ready to introduce our guests and have them come and say some things. I see we have Donna, ourselves, and Camille. Minister Camille is on. Go ahead and like, tag, and share. So again, I am Overseer M. Alexander, and I turn it over to this handsome man of 36 years. I'm remembering dating 40. He captured me, as he says. You know, he had to try hard. Praise God. It's fun. You know, and that's the thing about breaking stigmas, that you can have fun. We'll be church people and we love the Lord, but we have real talk.
Real talk.
Yeah. Real talk. So, would you want to share anything, sir?
Well, I was actually thinking, we had a great conversation last week, you and I, on the way to work. On the way to work. On the way to
That's work, church work.
Church work. On the way to church, and just kind of evaluating, reflecting on where we are and where we want to be, and some of the things that we need to do better on, and all those things. I think those are healthy conversations that not enough people are doing. Sometimes when you identify areas you need to work on, to be able to say, hey, I've fallen short, or I didn't pay enough attention to this. Sometimes, not sometimes, oftentimes, goes unchecked, and then it goes bigger and bigger and bigger. So I just want to let you know I appreciate the conversation on last week. And I was sharing with Kenny that when we had one vehicle, we had a lot of those conversations. And then you got two vehicles and you're driving in two separate vehicles, and those conversations become less and less. So I sure appreciate it.
Well, wonderful. Yeah. Well, we have two fabulous guests. Ladies, who would like to introduce themselves first?
I'll go. Donna Costa. I am a social worker, mom, a wife, and someone who is in recovery. And today is an important day for me because it represents the fact that I am 2 months post grief of my sister's third year of being of her passing. And it's important because I'm able to actually have a conversation with her without having these type of thoughts. And so I'm glad to just be here. Thank you.
We celebrate you. Yay. Yes. Congratulations. Woo.
Yeah.
All right.
And I am Yolanda Jones. I'm a mental wellness counselor, a wife, a mother, a lover of Christ, and walking into my purpose.
I like that. Yeah. Yes.
That done said a lot right there.
Right.
Yeah, I figured you would catch that little nugget.
And the thing about a word for the soul come to uplift, to encourage you, to let you know that you're chosen and God has a plan for your life. So as we share this information and we're talking about suicide awareness, if you had not had a chance to like, tag, and share, please do so. This needs to get out to everyone. we need to let people know what's going on and what's happening. Dr. Piper, Deacon Piper, and Minister Piper are on. Thank y'all for being on. And so we're going to get ready to get started. We're going to start with our first question.
This is a continuation of last week. So just in case they missed last week, they need to go back and watch last week too.
Yes, love it. And if somebody would like to, we're talking about stigma. Matter of fact, I'm going to have Dr. Yolanda, as we start our first question, kind of recap, because she brought this to us. We still are working on stigma. Yes, we've been through the pandemic. We're out of the pandemic. We found out how once that we were virtual, how different things people went through, but continuing that conversation. The conversation has not ceased, and we shall continue. So our first question is, I'll put it up, and then we're going to have Dr. Yolanda kind of recap before she answers the first one, and we'll just feed off of that.
Okay, so recapping, we started talking about just understanding and being comfortable with having the conversations, talking about suicide and making it not such a taboo word, giving you the opportunity to open up the conversation if someone felt a certain way without being judgmental. And we're kind of still continuing in knowing that it's okay to have all the feelings. As we referenced on last week, we talked about the movie Inside Out and how they have part two that's out now, and how even more so part two brought in more emotions that was not a part of part one. And part two kind of brought us to where we are, where you have the angry feeling and you have all of those different emotions, but letting you know it's okay to have those emotions, but we don't want you to stay in those emotions. And that's kind of when you start gearing off towards the path of self-healing and maybe having suicidal ideation to think about those things. So that's what we're here is breaking down the stigma and knowing that it's okay to have all the feelings, but also knowing it's okay to have the conversation. It's okay to tell someone, hey, this is where I am right now. And I feel comfortable enough to let you know so that you can help me get past this point. So we're working on being able to talk to our friends, our community members, and our family members on how can you support someone that's there and making sure that you open that space for them to have the conversation. But more than anything, don't be judgmental when they bring where they are. Allow them to feel the way they feel and to express the way they feel. And so that goes into our first question of how can friends and family members support someone dealing with mental health issues and suicidal thoughts while combating the stigma? We cannot say this enough, and that's having the conversations. But beyond having the conversations, sometimes you just have to listen. You don't always know how that person feels. You can't always put yourself in that person's position. But if you let them know, hey, I see you, I hear you, and I'm right here with you to walk this step in whatever way you allow me to, because we have to realize it's their space. So don't force yourself in someone's space if they don't want you in that space. And we had the perfect example of that today at the church. And I'm gonna bring in Emery because she was in her space and she was trying, as adults, we see babies, we want to hug on them, we want to kiss on them, and we don't realize sometimes that's not what they want. Right. And her not even being one, she was very good in trying to articulate, give me my space. Like, step back a little bit. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, oh my, I could see it. I'm like, this baby is saying, hey, I don't want all y'all hugging and kissing on me right now. I'm in overload. Give me some space. Sensory overload. We're so natural to want to keep imposing. And that's what we do to each other. That's what we do to our family and friends when they're trying to tell us, hey, I'm not in a good place right now. But we're so busy, like, oh, let's talk about it. Oh, you're going to be okay. Oh, God's going to work it out. He has your back. But we have to realize that's not what space they're in. So allow them to be in the space and walk in that space with them in the way that they will allow us to walk in that space. And sometimes it's simply sitting there being quiet and not even talking, but letting them know you're there. When you're sitting there being quiet, some of us zoom off, especially if you're ADD or ADHD. You kind of go to what I like to say, la la land. or go to Paris, but you have to let them know, hey, I'm not in La La Land. I'm not talking because I'm giving you your space and I'm in your area. But give them subtle moments to know I'm here, whether it's a head nod or but don't overtake the conversation. Sometimes we want to throw our advice onto that person. That's not what they need at that moment. They just need to know they're seen, they're heard, and you're listening, and you're not judging them. You're allowing them to tell you, hey, I'm at rock bottom, and this is what I'm thinking about doing. And the fact that they're trying to tell you that tells you kind of sort of that that's not really what they want to do. But if you don't try to help pull them out, that's what they're going to do. So they're giving you that moment to help rescue them. So take the time to rescue them in a way that they need to be rescued.
Mhm.
All
That's
right.
good. That's
Yeah.
good. I just can add to that, to what you were saying, Dr. Yolanda, because, as a parent of a child who went through her own battle, the parent, I I was no longer the clinician, I was the parent. And as the parent, I became this, I was hyper vigilant, hypersensitive, to any subtle changes in mood, to the point to where she started letting me know I was too much,
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
because I was trying to pick up on any shift in even in her body language, her facial expressions. Where are you going? You know, and became that I was no longer the safe space for her. I was then the over protective mom who was actually getting in the way of her being able to just, okay, I'm going through this and I need you to walk alongside me, but I don't need you crowding me in it. And so it was her and I having that conversation with the help of a counselor, because we had that family therapy, for me to understand it from her point of view, because I was becoming too much, because out of fear,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so I appreciate you for sharing that.
Oh, I just have to diddle that real quick because as parents, when you come into the knowledge of what you should do and not do, oh, I can be that parent, but because we have relationship with our girls, they'll say, "Mom, you're a little bit too much right now. I need you just I'm okay. Just step back just a
Hmm.
little." I mean, I love that because we have that relationship, and then I say,
Yeah.
"Okay, I respect that," and that's so
Hmm.
important.
But I'm gonna piggyback off of what everything's been said. That comes with maturity,
Oh, it
Yeah.
does.
right?
Yes,
Oh,
Because
yeah.
as a parent, as a clinician, you want this person to be this, right?
right.
And we want to get them to a certain level. That's
Yes,
what
we
we
do.
all want.
Hmm.
However, the patience to sit in that conversation when you already know the
Whew.
answer, right? You
Yes.
Whole
already know
nother
the answer,
level.
but they have to come to that conclusion by themselves.
Yeah.
And these days, I want to take off the top of their head and
Yes.
give them the answers. Say,
Yes.
stir it up a little bit, wash out that old brain, and that is the mark of maturity. You can have all the tools, but sometimes to be able to sit in that space and be patient and allowing whoever whether it be a family member, be a client, it be whoever that person is, to come to that conclusion can be frustrating.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
sometimes you got repeated visits and you want to like, okay, when are they gonna get this? Right? But then you still gotta sit in that space, knowing that you got to get this thing before you can't really move forward until you get it right,
Yeah.
and you still got to sit there and act like, oh my God, I know we're not having the same conversation again, right? But that comes with maturity. That comes with um, we had a situation on my job the other day. Somebody was paid. They wanted prayer for patience. I said, let me tell you what that means. When you ask the Lord for patience, that normally comes with a test,
Oh, yeah, it
right?
does.
I said,
Mm.
you don't have to ask God for patience. Life will treat you and take you through these journeys. Don't don't
Hmm.
don't what word I use? Um, over whatever I said, but don't put that on the forefront. Just let it come natural. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's so important that as parents, though, knowing when to step back and yeah, it is a very strong desire
Yes.
to be over
Yeah.
hypervigilant. That's what I'm looking for. It's
Mm-hmm.
that easy, right? Because we want the best for our child. And
Yeah.
yes, every time they drop a pin, we want to know why they dropped the pin. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Why you bend it down like that? Because that's what we do.
That's right.
Yeah. And the other thing is, kind of piggybacking off that message I had today, when people are feeling that they're not valued
Right.
or they're
Yes.
overlooked, then there's a tendency to show them that they are valued, right?
Yeah.
And they are not overlooked, and then we go overboard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mother Velma said, yes, go and you got to pass the test. Thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for those who are joining. Sister Irene, thank you for being on. Go ahead and like, tag, and share if you see something. Kenidra, thank you for being on. So let's go ahead and like, tag, and share. Let people know we are talking about suicide awareness, breaking the stigma, and how is it relevant? How do we continue to talk to our friends and our family? And I think last week everybody had said having that just have a conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't shy away from it.
Right. And
It's to be direct.
Yes.
yes,
Be blunt.
but I think also we put pressure on our children because of who we are. And I'm looking
Oh,
at
as leaders.
as leaders, I'm looking at
Yes.
leaders in front of me. And because we are known in the community, because we are leaders, our children will get that stigma. They have to be perfect, right? Or
Mm.
they have to be XYZ.
That's good.
And that is, and I've been preaching for years. My wife and I ones were called, not the children. They're going to receive their own calling whenever God calls them. But
Right.
sometimes as church, we tend to call the whole family and don't allow the quote unquote the leadership's family to be family to just grow naturally. We don't give them that grace, and then we put additional pressure, additional stress on the children.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, Bishop, I would actually like to even go further than that.
Sure. Mhm.
That as a community,
Yes.
Yes.
sometimes we put a lot on each other,
Yes.
and if one of us messes up,
Mm.
boy, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes.
That grace is out the door,
Yes.
and there's this like, don't you know that you're representing us? So
Yes.
that's that added weight sometime of feeling like you're carrying the whole community.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what?
Yes.
Go ahead,
And I
Doctor.
want to say, even with that, sometimes when you try to let people know that I need a moment or I need a mental break, just because that person is the person that you always see going, 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 but even at some time they need a break. And a lot of times we don't allow that person, even when they come say, hey, I need a break. Instead of allowing them to take a break, we're still pushing them to add more to their plate and
Yes.
going more and more instead of realizing, hey, it's okay to sit down for a second. It's
Yes.
okay to take a deep breath, and I think that's one thing we have to be aware of because sometimes that goes with pushing that person too far and putting that extra weight on them because I know personally, I have told people, and especially family members, like, hey, I'm in school, I'm working on this, I have this going on, I can't do that, and I need to wait. And what I noticed is these same people that I gave that same grace to when they were doing, nobody gave me grace. It was
Yeah.
still, hey,
Yes.
can
Hmm.
you prove this?
Hmm.
Hey, can you do this? And I'm thinking, like, I just told you I'm about to break. Like, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it's going down mentally for me.
Yeah.
Give me a moment. I thank God that I have the extra tools that I needed to understand that, hey,
Hmm.
they was not giving me what I need, so I'm gonna have to take it at this point. Because
Hmm.
I remember there was a time I wouldn't have, and I would enter into depression because I didn't have the tools I needed to help myself at that
Mhm.
particular time. But I often think now in the space that I'm in, like, oh my God, we don't give people, even we're saying have the conversation and we're saying come and say this, but are we open? So when they come to have the conversation
Yeah.
and tell us, are we open enough to understand? You know what? Let's let them debrief however they need to. Let's allow them that moment to sit in that space instead of, oh, it's okay, get out right now. I'm gonna get you out of this. I think we talked about it in church this morning too, about how as Christians we use the Christian language. Oh, God got you. He does, but right now I can't hear you telling me God has me.
Mm.
I'm not in that place. And like Sister Irene mentioned, I'm fighting God. You know what? So I might not even be trying to listen to God at this moment.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, He
That's
probably
good.
has me. We know He has us. But if I'm not in a position to hear that or to accept that, then you're not helping me. So sometimes
Mhm.
we can't always, as Christians, go that spiritual route. Sometimes we have to go the natural route and deal with that person where they are and allow
Mhm.
them, stop putting our beliefs, stop putting our morals and our values on someone else.
Yeah.
Actually hear them. And I think that's a one of the part of that conversation that you have to have when that person is trying to tell you. Sometimes you just gotta, hush
Yeah.
and
Yes.
not put your stuff on them and let them get it out and not try to throw all your advice on them as well. Because we're
Mhm.
quick to be like, well, I did this or sister so and so did this, but I'm not asking you about her. Like I
Right.
know me sometimes when I talk to my mom, when I tell y'all that woman, and I know she loved the Lord, but sometimes I'm thinking to myself, look, I want to talk to my mama, not Mother Josie, not Evangelist Josie, not Deacon Josie. I need a mama right now because I'm not trying to hear the
Got
spiritual
sometimes you
side.
got to differentiate.
And and,
Yeah,
and
I'm in
that
my
is
flesh.
Yeah.
So
yes.
my flesh is not trying to hear any
Right.
of that. And we have to make sure that we think about all of those different avenues when we're in that position, in that situation to help someone. That's where we talk about knowing your audience and understanding where they are. If you're going to use your spiritual side, you know what? Use it on the inside of you and ask for guidance in how to help that person without
That's
throwing
good.
that guidance on that. Use your
That's good.
discerning of the spirit to figure out where are they so that you can go meet them where they are without bringing up the extra God. Because you're going to have time to bring God, but it's not at this moment and in this space where they are. Because guess what? They're not going to hear you anyway. And depending on where they are, they're going to shut down even more.
Right.
If you keep
Right.
pushing it.
That's good because I got 2 points. One, I'm gonna piggyback off of Donna, but I want to finish with Dr. Yolanda was talking about. In my household, we have when my daughters use daddy, they want daddy.
Right.
When they use bishop, they want bishop.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
we have that relationship to know the difference, right?
Right. Right.
Because I'm not always bishop to them. I'm daddy first, and they don't
Yeah.
want the bishop. In this particular instance,
Right.
they want,
Daddy.
yeah, and sometimes they've gotten to the point now. I want to speak to Trevor.
Yeah.
Oh no, who I gotta go knock out? Who I gotta go knock out? Who gotta get chopped in the throat? But that's how
Mhm.
we are. But based on how they address me, I know to prepare not to go into the spiritual side. They want the daddy, or they want somebody knocked out. I'm just saying. But the other part is, Donna, you really raised a good point. I'm going to tell you, sometimes we do have the additional pressure in the community to represent. And I'll give you a quick example. When Bill Cosby went through all of those issues he had, people was coming knocking, what do you think about Bill Cosby? And I had to tell you, I struggled answering that question
Yeah.
because it was Bill Cosby. I then
Mhm.
had to make a decision and come to a conclusion. Is Bill Cosby and Heathcliff Huxtable.
But there's a difference.
Right?
Yes.
We were idolizing Heathcliff
Yes.
Huxtable.
Yes.
And I know they're one and the same person. One is a TV character.
Yeah.
One is
Mhm.
real. Well,
Mhm.
when the Cosby's came on, he was Heathcliff, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
Fred, and all of the rest of those were the family that we had to look up to. But the guy that got in trouble was Bill Cosby, and we had to learn that he's not representing the whole family; he's representing him. I had to go through that internal struggle because one of my idols is now being thrown across the public arena, and now I got to defend him. I can't defend Bill Cosby, but I can defend Heath Huxtable.
Mhm.
I hear you saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
as you guys were both speaking, I was thinking about, and Donna first started off how she is celebrating her post 2 months. Sometimes as we're going and we're breaking the stigma, we have to make sure we're taking care of ourselves, doing what we need to do. I'm so grateful. Bishop helps me to um, take care of myself, to guard my time. Sometimes
Yes.
you have to guard your time. Yes, that's why he's laughing. And I help him to guard his time as well because it's important. You
So
can't get
she
that
does a
time
better
back.
job of God in my time than she does her own.
I do. I do. I make sure that.
Wives tend to do that.
Yes,
Yes.
we do. But in all doing so, we really have to. We have these conversations. I remember the Sunday before last, I said we need to take a break from Words for the Soul because I needed a mental break,
Right.
just to grieve. And in doing so, other people's like, okay, sometimes you just have to disconnect from whatever social media, whatever things that are going on, so you can, that inner self, be ready to be helpful so you can help somebody else. Go ahead.
This is, I don't want to call it crucial or critical conversation for leaders because we can put on that mental and the mental gets heavy. And back to your statement you made, Dr. Yolanda, we push people away, right?
Yeah.
And that's a sign for me when I need a mental break, when I don't want to be around people. That's my internal trigger because I'm a people person, right? When I don't want to be around people, there's something going on inside of me that I need to address. And I'm not always able to label it at that point. I'm not always able to say it's this and that. I got to sit with it sometimes or sit with part of my village to understand there's something not clicking for me.
Right.
And I don't have the language right now. So I have to invite other people into that space, but it's limited people. Everybody can't come into that space at that time because I don't want everybody in that space because I may say the wrong thing, lash out, do the wrong thing because I'm not in that space.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you for actually bringing the self into this conversation because I think we were talking about how to support like family or someone that we care about.
Yes.
I hope that someone that we care about is ourselves.
Yes.
Yes.
Because what you just said just hit because I'm someone that if I pull back and look at myself, the fact that I'm so driven, I will overwork for me is a red flag.
Right.
Like just busy to the point of just exhaustion
Yes.
is a red flag for me that I didn't see when I was in the really muck of my sickness. I'll say that.
Right.
But when pulling back, I'm like, I was running, so that way I didn't feel because I didn't want to feel.
Right.
Or to the point of where I was so numb that I was just doing, eating whatever it was just to feel something.
Yeah.
Right.
Those are signs. Those are tells for me. And so just now I can start seeing those tells. If I'm like all of a sudden every day I'm stopping at the store to get some M&Ms. Donna, what is this about?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
What is this sugar thing about?
Yes.
And so paying attention to my signs, my tells are important too. Because if not, that means that I'm always going to need somebody outside of me to tell me when they're noticing, and I should be able to start being much more aware when stuff is off. So I appreciate you for saying that.
Thank you. That's good. Dr. Yolanda, you going to say something?
No, I'm just agreeing.
I just want to put one more point, and we move on.
Okay.
Culturally, we have to be able to transcend culture.
True.
Because I think sometimes because culture has invaded much of who we are, and you cannot be human outside of culture.
Right.
Culture is part of being human. However, there's certain parts of culture that can be a blockage for this type of conversation. And I'm just going to Gonna throw this out there. Black people, we don't get crazy. We're not crazy. That's white people. We don't get depressed, right? And when somebody is depressed, now they got to fight through their own cultural barriers to come and have a conversation. And if it's with a family member, we now got to fight that tendency. That's not us.
Yeah, it is.
We don't put on. You been hanging out with them white folks, right? Those kind of things. And I'm not trying to make it a racial thing. It's the culture, right? And that's where we have to fight through, because depression, mental health knows no culture.
Right.
That's it.
However, we do have those cultural barriers that we have to go through.
Oh, I like that.
Thank you.
Well, those type of statements are that's stigma.
Stigmas.
Yes, that's the
Right?
stigma.
Yes.
And that's important too, because a lot of times we say society, but we also have to think about society as a whole. It's more a part of our culture, because that's your people that you're with right away. So that's where you're gonna feel and see that first resilience. So you have to be aware. And as a culture, we have so many stigmas on what we perceive. So we have to learn to, at the end of the day, I love the suicide hotline and their slogan, be the one too. Because when we're having this conversation, no matter when we're talking about mental health or what suicide awareness, in all of them, because of our culture, we have to be the one to continue to speak out, to continue to go against the grain of the stigma of what we've been taught. This is how we're supposed to be. This is how we're supposed to think. So we got to continue to be those ones, to be the one. We got to continue to be the one to make that difference. We got to be the one. I just love this so much, because that's the one thing I brag about. Our church is like, girl, it's third Sunday. I got to go to church. Mr. Camille and she made a joke. She was like, the one thing I know, you might miss every Sunday. I was like, yes, ma'am, I am a third Sunday member. I show up. Third Sunday, I'm like, see, if I can't come, I'm like, what am I missing? Because these conversations are so important. So to be able to actually have my culture, my community, and my society, and freely talk about those things where I wouldn't be anywhere else I can talk about them. Even knowing that I work in this field, because of my colleagues, there's still certain conversations that I can't have even within this field, that when I come to church, it's no holds barred. It's a free space. And I can actually say all of that stuff. I can even talk about my colleagues, So those are the things that we have to remember and work on tearing down those stigmas, and to keep continuing to be the one to do that.
Yeah,
I like that.
And thank you being a third Sunday member. But let me just say this: you also turned.
I did the wrong one. Sorry.
But you've also turned in now to a second Sunday member as well. So let's put it in there.
I am.
It is good.
I'm even doing Wednesday night.
And Wednesday night. All right.
Yes.
We're working on that one there. But I have to say this though. And thank you both for that, because much of what we're doing is the work that you guys are doing behind the scenes to help us to get to that level.
That's it.
And I love what you said today, Donna, about suicide, where we get to the place we were no longer talking about it. That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Oh, man.
That's the goal.
So I just think I see other people have started coming on in. Josie, thank you so much. Toya,
that's my mama, y'all.
That's your mama?
That's my mama.
Right.
Oh, thank you, mama. Oh, she said, my child. Oh, go ahead now.
She claiming you and you claiming her. That's a good thing.
That's a good sign, right? That means I'm good, Bishop.
You good. Yeah. You see, when they start rejecting you, something went wrong.
Robert Wilson, good to see you on.
Yeah.
So our next question is, what are some signs that someone might be struggling with mental health issues or suicidal thoughts? And how can we address these signs without perpetuating stigmas? And if you guys have some things that are online and you want to put in our chat, go feel free to do so as you're adding to our conversation. Or if you have a question, that you would like us to talk about, please put that in the chat as well. Let's keep the chat going, so we can have some comments in there as well. You know what? After I did
Well,
that, I forgot my question.
Yeah,
I got to pull it back up real quick because I forgot what it was that quick.
the signs.
Yeah,
The
what are
signs.
some signs? Okay, now I have it.
Yeah.
Well, definitely one of the most obvious is just talking about death and talking about suicide. And if you're just paying attention to someone's language, um, a lot of times, uh, our youth, for example, will use phrases like, "Oh, I just want to die." Well, check that out. Check it out just see. I just want to check this out with you, because this is when I hear this, it makes me concerned. I just want to check it out. What does that mean to you? So talking about, or a preoccupation with death, change in behavior. Someone who's typically engaging, around folks, and then all of a sudden they withdraw, and they're kind of like more in isolation. Those are something to really pay attention to, those changes in mood. um, this morning, Elder Genesis was talking about, self-harm. It's not necessarily means that someone is actively suicidal, but it's a slippery slope with self-harm, and I always wanted to check that out, and just make sure. And you never want to ignore. You
No,
never ever want to ignore. And also too, substance use. uh if someone who uh, typically is not, like, say, a drinker, and then all of a sudden they're drinking, um pay attention to that.
yes,
What is that about? Or there normally were social drinkers, but now they're they're drinking even without people being around, and pay attention to that. Those are some signs that something may be, going on,
yeah,
and kind of like want to get to the root of that. But I'm gonna tell you that there are some people out there who are very good at masking.
Yes.
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 Ooh,
So
yeah,
those people
right
that
there.
are the strong ones, and who are always laughing and bringing the jokes, those are sometimes you got to even check in with them,
That's right. Check on your strong
right?
people.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I like
I
that.
like that. And this morning we talked about, um, and I brought this up, the adventurous person
Yeah,
who wants to go out. I like, you know, repelling. But repelling is safe when you do all the safety
have
checks
your
and you have
harness
your
and everything.
harness and everything else. But people who all of a sudden become adventurous, or they've been adventurous but no longer want to take those safety issues. Uh, and I think to the younger ones now, we have to watch this one, because if they
Mm-hmm.
want to die and they have a vehicle, they use excessive speed, right? Or they're
Yes.
racing and in hopes of dying. But that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't look like suicide. It's accidental. However, their frame of mind is, I want to die and I'm going to use this vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And we also definitely have to think about, sometimes it's just the simple things of relationship, the
Yes,
self-destruction part of it,
yeah,
and
Yeah.
going past those relationships where maybe you notice that this person and I were really close, and then they started pulling back and thinking about those different ways of how that happened. And sometimes it's not just even that part. It could even be at work. Like, they start just messing up on purpose to end
Mm-hmm.
up losing their job, or to have those things to happen that puts them in that, because they're already slowly disconnecting. So they're already disconnecting those relationships as well. And so a lot of times we think it's always something we're going to see. And sometimes, like you say, your strong friends hide it best. And a lot of times they hide it best because, you know what, we don't listen to them. We don't pay attention when they're telling us. So they start masking it even more because they have the facade, you're not listening anyway. So we have to watch those different things. And even with our children, one of the things I notice is a lot of times they say things like, "Oh, I just want to kill myself," but you got to start asking them, why did they say it, and explaining them why, if they don't mean it, they shouldn't say it, because those are
Absolutely.
things that we have to take serious. So those are
Mm-hmm.
definitely things that we want to pay attention to. I know for me, the, "Oh, I don't want to be here." So I ask more questions. When you say you don't want to be here, what does that mean? You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be where? Are you saying you don't want to be in this building right now? Or are you saying I don't want to be on the earth? Like, what does that mean? Are
That's
you
right.
saying you are going to harm yourself? You got to dig deep sometimes in some of those words that you hear. So you got to listen for the small words, and then sometimes follow up with questions behind those small words to understand what's really going on. And a lot of times, especially with our youth, it's about educating them. It's
Mm-hmm.
about, guess what? If you don't mean this, these are reasons you wouldn't say this. And what I tell my students is, I'm always going to take it serious. So if
Thank
you don't
you.
want me calling mama, if you don't want me sending you home, then you have to watch how you use those words, because I'm always going to take it serious. This is what this means to me when you say that. So you're making them go back and forth. And then I see a question that says, how do you respond to a person who says, I have a friend who is thinking about suicide? Then you talk to them as if they're giving that advice to their friend. Maybe
That's
they
right.
really have a friend, maybe it's them. But you open that door to allow them to tell you if it's them, or continue with the friend. So you still have that same conversation with them, but you use it when you don't say, "Oh, I think it's you," or "I know it's you." You're like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
well, have you asked your friend this? Have you talked to your friend about this? Does your friend have someone they can go to and talk to? Would you like me to talk to your friend with you?" So you just continue. And at some point, if they're really talking about themselves and not the friend, because you're going along with it, they're going to have to figure out, which road am I going to take? They're going to have to figure out, are they going to open up more to you to let you know, hey, it's really them? Or are they going to keep going with the friend? And if they do, guess what? That's the road they open. That's the door they open for you guys to have the conversation. So again, we got to stay on their road, and we got to stay on their path, because we're not trying to bring them to our road or their path. We're trying to get them to where they see what they need, where they see the change and they want to make the change, not us trying to make them make the
And Dr. Yolanda, I want to also even say there are opportunities that we can kind of use to even bring, that education piece in.
change.
Um, Using like movies or using songs. Nowadays songs, have a
Right.
lot of content that deal with life and death. Use those opportunities to have engage in conversation around, like maybe even ask, what do you think that means, you know that lyric means, or what's going on in the movie, so that way it normalizes the conversation, so that way we can even be checking out their thoughts around, the idea of suicide being used
Right.
as an option.
And one of the things, like you said, you definitely want to make sure you allow them the opportunity to go their road, and that you're not trying to steer your thoughts, your beliefs, your ideas on them, because this is their moment and you don't want to take that away from them, because you don't want them to feel like they're not being seen or they're not being heard. In fact, you want them to know, I hear you and I see you. Sometimes you even have to use those words to say, hey, I hear you, I see you. And when you don't know what else to do, that's when you say, how can I help you? What can I do for you right now in this moment? That's one of
Mm-hmm.
the questions that I use a whole lot, is right now, what can I do to help you? We're not even thinking about tomorrow. We're thinking about, in the space you're in right now, what do you need from me? Do you need me to talk? Do I need to play music? Do I need to get you some water, a snack, or do I just need to be quiet and sit here?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure that you leave that door open for communication. So you have to make sure you're on the road with them so that they don't shut down. so that if a crisis comes, guess what? That door is open and they're more apt to contact you. If it's not right there in that moment, when it comes back, they remember, you know what? I talked to this person and they wasn't judgmental. They allowed me to be there, or that person seen me, or that person was nice. You know, we often say people are going to remember how you made them feel. If they don't remember anything else, they're going to remember how you made them feel, especially when they were in that lowest. You know, as we go through our trials and tribulations daily, we remember who was there for us in our darkest moments, what friends stayed and what friends. It's easy to be there when I'm on top of the world. It's easy to be there when we're dining, dashing, going everywhere, shopping. But when I'm at my lowest and I can't be nice to you, but you can still be by my side and rub my back or touch my shoulder or sit there. That's what I'm going to remember. I'm going to remember that. So we have to think about that's where they are. They're in a dark place. They're in that cave that we talked about at church. That's where they are. So what are you going to do? How do you pull them out? And guess what? It's not always by force.
Oh,
It's
so
those
good.
words.
So
It's
good.
those
It's not
silent
my fault.
moments. It's those
Well, that's why
silent
your
moments.
response matters.
Yes.
How you
Exactly.
respond in the moment can make or break whether someone is going to be open to returning to you with their issue, because they may be like, "Oh, this is too much.
Yes.
Mom can't handle it, so I'm I'm done talking to mom about this because she can't
Yes.
handle it."
Right.
You know,
Right.
so your response, my response in the moment matters, is critical.
Yes. And we back. We had a power
Oh,
outage,
it was so
knocked
funny.
us out, and then we had to wait for
I was like, where'd they go?
no, wait. We took a mental health break. But I was thinking, Dr. Yolanda, you gave a really good example today about talking to somebody about. You may have used it again, but we're off the air. But by talking to that person about the game, how you play that game. Sometimes entering into their space is entering where they are.
Yes.
One of this weekend, I had a great compliment. I had some training I had to do on Saturday, and one of the presenters was one of my students. She's now a doctor, but she was an undergrad. Her very first class she took as an undergrad was with me, and she said one of the favorite thing that she appreciated about my class was a no judgmental zone.
Right.
Because religion can be triggers in so many areas.
Yes.
And we want to have the conversation without judging people. She said she took that with her all the way through to her PhD program. And I have to say, I was blessed because I sat on her PhD committee. So I got to see this come circle. But sometimes just being able to refrain from judging,
be silent.
right? Even if you have an opinion,
Just keep it
just
to
keep
yourself.
yourself, know when to hold them, when to fold them, as Kenny Rogers was saying.
Yes.
When to walk away, but know when that in that moment, your opinion don't count. You got
Right.
to be present to that person.
You know, as you are talking and we had went off, I want to make sure we get this in before we close out today. We talked about this morning, and it brought up a trigger for somebody, even in the midst of us,
verbiage.
our verbiage, and it was, I want to bring it up. What is the language we should be using when we talk to someone struggling with mental health? And we were specifically talking about, do you want to harm yourself? Do you want to kill yourself? And the thing that came up, and I think I wrote it down, I wanted to make mention of it. Unaliving yourself. Unaliving yourself. For some people, because now we want to say that they suicide by death. We want to make sure that we are saying things that we're not triggering other people. But unaliving yourself for somebody reminded them of something that happened in the past in the military. And that was a trigger. You could tell the response.
Yeah.
And
it was forceful, very forceful.
So as we are sharing and you're talking about the knowledge that we get about suicide awareness, if you see that person is responding and it's not positive, you got to give them a break.
Yeah.
Give them opportunity to process what you just said. and not keep pushing
Mhm.
it. I think we said that before, because sometimes as we're sharing, and I meant to say this in the beginning, by anything that we share, doing our stories, and if you feel like you're feeling something, take a time to step away, process.
Mhm.
If you need to go cry, if you need to do whatever, that you're taking care of yourself, and we
Yeah,
have to be sensitive to that.
Yeah.
And I want to say,
absolutely.
as you're presenting or you're sharing, and you're sharing truths of the things that are facts that we know and from our studies and education. But in our facts that we get, if it's triggering someone, say, you know what, maybe we won't talk on that right now because you're not ready to receive that.
Right.
And that's okay.
But and I also
I,
go ahead, Donna, because I got
no, I was actually even going to say to even ask if you can pull them aside and say, I noticed something with,
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
and what was that? And in
Yeah,
that moment, what was that? And so that they can make that connection,
There you go.
because sometimes they're not even aware that they're triggered.
right.
They
Right.
just feel heightened, or
Yes.
they're feeling I feel a certain kind of way. A lot of times people say, I'm feeling a
I'm
certain
going
kind of
some kind
way.
of way. Yes.
They may not even know, wow, that hit, or why it hit.
Yes.
And so if you can help them unpack that, that'd be great. But that word though, unalive, it is because of COVID kind of helped that word come out,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
because we went to this online place because we had to, out of necessity. And so people really took to TikTok. People really took that. They were engaged around
Yeah.
that. Well, using the word suicide, using the word kill will actually get your videos flagged
yeah,
Hmm.
and removed.
yes,
And so that's where this word unalive really came from. It was due
Hmm.
to, wow, what other word can we say that's not going to get our content removed?
yes, yes.
Um and I feel like that was it was useful. That was a beautiful thing that happened today, that we recognize that, wow, there's an emotional connection to that
Yes.
word for some
Yes.
people,
Yes.
Yes.
and being aware of that is so important. So I appreciated it even being brought up as, like, I don't know if I like that word. I
Right,
appreciate that,
Yeah.
right. And I think
because
as
it brings it to our awareness.
right,
Yes.
and as a presenter, that's one thing, and as a participant, that's another. But as a
Yeah.
participant, understanding your trigger, right? Because if I am counseling or sitting in that space with somebody who is suicidal or have the ideations, right? Now they use that word and it's my trigger. I got to be
Mhm.
careful now. I don't enter into a space
Yeah.
that triggers them even further now because
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
can we use another word? Let them use their language, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And even if it is a language you don't appreciate or agree with, it's their language.
Yes.
Hmm.
Because what the end goal is, we want to make sure that they feel valued, they feel heard, they feel respected. And when we shut down their voices or tell them they're using the wrong type of language or that's too political, we got to be careful.
Yes.
Really have
Hmm. Hmm.
so I appreciated the conversation today too,
It was very
and
good.
I think those are what I call the aha moments of
Yes.
Yeah.
having these conversations. You can plan all day long, do everything you want to do, and then suddenly that moment comes in. It's like, okay, next time this comes up, I'll be better prepared to handle that. But it was good. It
It
was
was
good.
very
Hmm. I
good.
agree.
Oh man. I'm going to transition. I'm going to do something a little bit different
Yeah.
today.
Hmm.
Um, First, next week, I'm going to share. We're going to be talking with someone who's has a loved one who committed suicide by death.
Hmm.
I'm going to make sure I said it. Suicide by death, and how the family members
Hmm.
had to process that. And so we'll have a guest on besides our wonderful guest we have on today. But before we end today, we want to start sharing. True Vine is in the midst of believing the manifestation of True Vine Elevation Academy is going to be coming forth. So,
Yes.
last few minutes, we just want to share a little bit about True Vine Elevation. I thank you for everybody that is on, but hopefully you would just let us share just a few minutes on our vision. And True Vine Elevation Academy, what it's going to do is a private Christian education. It'll start from 6 weeks, 6 weeks to fourth grade. That is where God has given us, 6 weeks to fourth grade.
For now.
For now. And then we would build upon it. But True Vine Elevation Academy provides a distinctly Christian education to develop tomorrow's leaders today. Christian, drawing from a diverse Christian community. The school partners with parents. We know because parents play oh my goodness, those who've been in education, we know parents play a phenomenal role. So we want the parents to be on board, develop each student's unique God-given talents, that we are letting them to know that they're going to become critical thinkers, that they can think about other things than just processing a test. How to navigate. We're doing like mentorship from vertical to horizontal, where upper grades will be mentoring the lower grades. And then we plan on having worship. That is something really important, that our children are going to learn how to worship at a young age. And every subject that we have will be engrafted with Christian values and characteristics. So these are some of the things that we are planning. We are starting off, first of all, it has over in the chat, True Vine Elevation Academy is participating in the Big Give. The Big Give is September the 18th and 19th. And listen to this. We found out from going through training, they have a thing what they call matching moments. When you go to this link, so if you go on matching moments at 611 on September the 18th, you give $5, it's going to be $10. You give 100, it's going to be $200. We asking you, if you would like to give, do it during the matching moments, because your money goes further. And so that information will be on the line. Bishop, you want to say anything?
Now, I want to just piggyback off you said, but do it quickly, because I want to tie it into topics.
Yes.
Because if we start developing the young minds
Yes.
early, right, help them to feel valued, help them to feel appreciated and heard, and all the things that we talked about. And back, I want to keep. I love the way you ended today, Donna, because we want to get to the place where we're not talking about this anymore, right? If we can get these young minds early,
Yes.
right, and stimulate these young minds early, and have the older ones mentor the younger ones. All of those things are critical. That's not being done today.
Right. Yeah. And I want to share, because we have Donald, who also does restorative justice.
Yes.
We have Yolanda that talks about counseling. Our children, we want to incorporate all of this in the school as well. The children have to learn how to handle when there is a conflict. How do you solve that? They have to learn how to be able to speak up. So learn the different things that God has connected us to, and we have collaborative partners. We will be partnering with different people in our community that will be helping us. And so I already know, for those who do not know, Donna does work with Bexar County, and she does restorative justice. Miss Yolanda, she's in the school system right now. She's a counselor. Some of those techniques and things we will be bringing in to True Vine Elevation Academy. So we just wanted to end on that note. For this month and next month, the last few minutes, we will be sharing about True Vine Elevation Academy. Please share this information with your friends. Let them know that we are part of the Big Give, and we're looking for great things to happen. And we want you to join us next week. Go ahead. I can see it. I can see it. I see it all in your face.
No, I just want to. I want to start practicing what I teach in my classroom.
Talk to us.
That's a call to action.
Yes.
Right.
Go ahead.
And I don't want this next month of mental health and suicide awareness without us challenging our audience to be called to action. It's great for us to talk about these things and bring these issues to light. Mm-hmm. But what are you going to do in your own community? Because I know, realizing now, there's going to be people listening to this broadcast long after we sign off from different parts of the world and different states. What are we going to do with this information? It's a lot. It's great. It's one thing to take good notes. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to what. But what am I going to do with it?
Yeah. Right? How are you going to implement?
How am I going to implement this? What am I going to? What is my next step? Who am I? Who do I need to speak to help make this a reality? We have to now move into the next step of the call to action. What is your action? What is your action plan? What is God calling you to do in this season?
Ooh,
in
I
this
like
season.
that.
I like
Ooh, that's a good
I
way
do
to.
too.
That's
Yes.
good, man. Well, you know what? So be thinking about that. So when we meet on next Sunday at 6 p.m. and we're sharing and talking about this continued conversation, you'll be able to share some of your next steps because you had a chance to process.
Mhm.
Thank you, Tanya. She's been adding information inside of our chat. Crisis hotline has been put in the
Five,
chat.
she said the 5 takeaways.
5 takeaways.
Yes.
What will you do here?
Uh,
Your call to action. Thank you, Minister Camille. People,
I
y'all
love that.
keep chiming in. We appreciate this because this needs to get out. And our next step is we pray to be on Spotify soon. So
Yes.
this will go out even more. So all the things that we've been doing, we're saving and we want to send it out to all over the world.
And I want to piggyback, Donna. You put a challenge out there to design the T-shirt.
Oh yeah.
You want to put
Oh, yes.
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 Our wellness program, we are looking to design a t-shirt for our team, and so we need some creative minds. We want our youth to actually be a part of this creating of our design for our t-shirt. So we have a little contest for any youth who wants to come up with a design for our t-shirt, and we're asking them to just be creative, think about wellness, think about health, and the sky's the limit.
Yes.
And whoever is design we select will get a $25 gift card. So we're asking all youth of True Vine to come on and get your creative hats on, and let's get us a t-shirt design.
All right.
Amen.
All right.
All right.
Well, again, this has been phenomenal. I applaud all of y'all. Thank you.
And
Yes,
keep
yes.
on going when we got off.
Appreciate that.
We did.
Oh my goodness. All right. Oh, yes, yes, Dr. Yolanda, she will close us out in prayer.
Yes. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity that we join together and we're able to have these conversations in a safe place, Lord. We thank you for the ears that were here and that were listening, that they get the information that they need and that they're able to reach out. If they need someone to reach out to, they have those people around them, or by giving them the information that we're giving them, they're able to contact the church or able to call the 988 number, but just making sure they're able to get somewhere safe, Lord, and for covering them. We thank you for continuing to allow us to be the ones to carry your word and carry your message, but also understanding when it's a time and a place for everything, and that we reach and use our discerning of the spirit to connect with the people and the souls that we're supposed to connect. Until we're here again, we thank you for covering everyone under your son Jesus' blood and for safe blessings as we go to and from. Amen.
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 Thank you.
All right now, y'all have a beautiful